Well then, we have a new champion in the category of how not to conduct an alien invasion, the naval battle, where bearded aliens got their inner cheeks tickled by a museum battleship respectfully gives up its title to War Machine, where an alien combat walker gets punched in the face by a bulldozer and a mining conveyor. And all of this is orchestrated by soldiers of the US Army, an army apparently trained in the philosophy of if there's no problem, create one. The movie starts in Afghanistan. A vehicle breaks down in a convoy in an area where enemy presence is possible. Instead of towing the vehicle back to base with a winch, the soldiers call in a repair team without thinking about what a massive tactical screw up they're creating, and spending several hours fixing the vehicle in enemy territory. During that time, the enemy spots them and brings in a mortar team, which the soldiers only become aware of through their severed limbs because no one was watching the perimeter. Although, judging by how accurately the mortars are landing on the soldiers, the distance to the mortar position is only a few hundred meters, and a single soldier with binoculars on a hill could have spotted the enemy movement. And the only one who survives is an unnamed combat engineer, a sapper and mechanic with the call sign 81, proving that steroids in the ass and a barbell in your hands can save you even when a mine explodes a meter away. It also proves that for some people, big muscles really do compensate for a small brain. With an injured leg, he decides to carry his wounded brother all the way back to base, which is dozens of kilometers away, and even though that's the worst possible option, his brother needs immediate medical attention, but with every step he grows more exhausted and slows down, and the brother dies. It would have been faster for him to reach the base alone and call for a medevac helicopter, which would have bought his brother time. In the end, the musclehead collapses just 100 meters from the base, and his brother dies, and all because he thought he was the son of Hercules, with infinite health and strength. Before the mortar strike, the brothers agreed that after their contract in Afghanistan ended, they would try to join the elite ranger unit, and so, to fulfill the promise to his fallen brother, 81 goes to the Rangers after rehabilitation.
You and me, getting our ranger scrolls, we can run across the tarmac, Black Hawks, first boots on the ground.
And then, when 81 had already exceeded the age limit for Ranger recruitment, plus had a serious leg injury, he gives someone a Dutch rudder, and on his 5th attempt, he finally gets accepted into selection, even though he should have been rejected again, just like before, as an ineffective soldier.
Applied 4 times, medically denied each time, but he just made the age cutoff.
The Rangers are an elite special operations unit. Their soldiers must endure enormous physical strain, so the regiment recruits young candidates in peak physical condition. By 41, even without injuries, a person's health is already declining, and in his case, he also has a damaged knee. From the Army's perspective, it makes far more sense to invest in training a 20-year-old who can serve for another 20 years than a 40-year-old who could be forced into retirement at any moment due to health issues. But Netflix said it had to happen, so 81 gets in anyway. And the fairy tale continues. 81 becomes the best of them all. He runs faster than the younger soldiers, fights better than anyone, and shoots better than everyone else, even though he previously served as a combat engineer. And out of all people, no one would have trained them to shoot like John Wick.
What about you, 81? 12 Bravo, combat engineer, 213th CSSB.
On top of that, to run that fast over long distances, he would have to be at least twice as strong and twice as enduring as everyone else. But considering his age and his weight of 110 kilograms, he should actually be twice as weak and slower. At the same time, he's so lacking in common sense that he constantly tries to outdo everyone, pushing himself to the point of passing out from oxygen deprivation, putting the entire unit at risk. If he had blacked out right there, the command would have faced serious consequences, so the leadership, just to make sure this guy doesn't pull any more stunts, offers him the option to resign voluntarily.
Concerns us is what's going on inside your head. Cadre says you're not sleeping.
You're done.
I'm done? Sit down. On what ground? Sit down!
But as soon as our Superman refuses to quit, the Colonel suddenly changes his mind about kicking him out, even though it's obvious he's a soldier with psychological issues, and in his case, severe PTSD, basically like a rusty grenade without a pin. With his erratic behavior, he could easily jeopardize a special operation. On top of that, he yells at his commanding officer, which only further proves his mental instability. But Netflix said he has to stay, so the Colonel keeps an unfit soldier, and even makes him the leader of the group for the final Ranger exam. And it's immediately clear these are elite troops. Apparently, they've even been trained to create a suction effect with their asses so they don't fall out of helicopters during sharp turns, in case someone like an idiot decides to sit right on the edge. They've also been taught to see in the dark like cats, since no one bothered to bring night vision goggles, even though this is an exam designed to closely simulate real operations they might take part in, where they should be in full gear. Well, all of this just shows that their intense Ranger training must have taken place entirely in first-person shooters.
Seriously, what the fuck was that?
Artillery fire, baby.
Artillery in a training exercise, artillery that produces a shockwave, and even if they decided those were rockets from a multiple launch rocket system, how can the best soldiers in the country not know that rockets travel along a ballistic trajectory, not in a straight line, and certainly not at an altitude of 20 meters, and the exhaust from rockets cannot create such a powerful shockwave. And on top of that anomaly, there's also a loss of communication, strange noise on the radio, a compass malfunction, and a ship of unknown origin with a skid mark, meaning it crashed and slid along its belly. That's definitely not some prop for a training exercise, but the infantry don't connect the dots at all and keep thinking it's all part of the exercise, even though something flew over them at night, and it never occurs to anyone that it was that very ship.
Maybe Cadre cut comms.
Cadre really went all in with the special effects.
Oh sure, and I guess the instructors also changed the Earth's magnetic field, which is why the compasses stopped working. This is clearly a military invasion. Sure, thinking about aliens might be unrealistic, but they could at least assume China attacked and that this is one of their new aircraft. In a situation like this, they should conduct reconnaissance, examine the craft. What if it's not a prop after all, but an actual combat vehicle? Besides, they were told their mission was to find a plane, and this thing doesn't look like one at all. It's an unknown object that needs to be investigated.
A classified aircraft shot down behind enemy lines. You need to destroy the aircraft so it doesn't fall into enemy hands.
But apparently these soldiers were trained not to think on the battlefield, but to act like complete idiots. And none of the above surprises 81 in the slightest, yet some shiny object in the forest suddenly seems highly suspicious, even though it could just be a bottle. Or maybe an instructor is watching them through binoculars, which is exactly why he shouldn't have gone alone, but with several soldiers in case they needed to repel an attack from the instructors. The rest just blindly follow the order to blow up who knows what. And why didn't anyone question the fact that this thing clearly isn't from the US Army, which means they're destroying the wrong target? When they were flying to the drop zone, they saw a quarry nearby. But what if this is just some new mining robot from there? The film never explains whether the alien robot is controlled by AI or operated remotely, but it doesn't really matter because while thousands of these machines are crashing down all over the planet and launching a full-scale war against humanity, with all his buddies doing actual military work like suppressing Earth's armies and taking control of cities, this one acts like a deserter and just lies around in the forest. He hasn't even moved since the moment he crashed, even though several hours have clearly passed. He's fully functional and supposedly here to fight, yet he's just chilling there, and even allows himself to be blown up. What if the explosives could penetrate his armor? He has no idea what kind of technology Earth has. And how did he end up landing in a forest instead of on a military base or some strategically important target? In a war, the first priority is to eliminate command structures, not hunt deer in the woods. Or maybe he just landed in an area with no mobile internet, and while he was figuring out how to reconnect with his network, that's why it took him until morning. And instead of immediately taking cover in the forest, the best of the best start acting like children, just standing there frozen, as if Santa Claus is about to hand out presents. Meanwhile, the humanoid wreck apparently needs a full 24 seconds just to detect enemies right next to it. And once again, we have a race that has mastered interstellar travel, learned to disguise themselves as asteroids, and possesses impenetrable armor. Yet in terms of weaponry, they're still at the Neanderthal stage. Everything is inaccurate and slow. Their projectiles aren't even high explosive fragmentation rounds. They just kick up dust. As usual with aliens, 100% originality, 20% effectiveness. Back in World War II, humans had weapons that were more effective and deadlier than what these aliens are using. And this alien scrap just stands there while its targets run into the forest, even though it can supposedly run like a cheetah and fly like a jet. But according to the plot, those perks are still locked. Gotta rack up some kills first. It even showed up to an invasion carrying what are basically riot control grenades that only knock things aside. And the best of the best just stand there waiting for the explosion when they had time to throw the grenade into the ravine. Or jump down themselves? How can you just stand there waiting for it to go off? It's obviously not a tennis ball someone tossed for fun. The blast isn't even that powerful. They could have landed on their backs and slowed themselves down with their legs. But these elite soldiers don't know how to think. So one smashes his face against a rock, another says goodbye to his spine and legs, and one guy straight up dies like Wolverine because he forgot to put on body armor before the operation. If these are the best, how dumb must the ones who got filtered out during training be?
Fort Benning, Sergeant, Basic AIT and Airborne, honor grad, top of the class.
And while the soldiers spend those few minutes recovering, the damn pile of scrap metal that was right on their heels suddenly disappears somewhere. Even a hedgehog could figure out that if it threw a grenade knowing exactly where they were, now that they've fallen down the slope, the alien robot should check the low ground and finish off the wounded. But apparently the robot had an emergency firmware update or something. Meanwhile, 81, who got away with just 2 broken fingers, quickly pops them back into place and they're magically fully functional again. Then he somehow forgets that communications are jammed jammed and waste precious energy on a pointless trip to the radio where the alien tin can is finishing off soldiers who are already on the brink of death. It's like nobody even gave the robot a proper mission, since it's messing around with nonsense instead of going to destroy the nearest military base, which is confirmed by the fact that while the aliens are carrying out a global invasion and should be suppressing capable military forces, this oversized hunk of junk starts hunting a small group of survivors who don't even have weapons. The targeting system of this alien shed can only lock onto deaf soldiers who somehow can't hear the footsteps of a multi-ton metal machine that makes the ground shake. But hitting a moving target? Sorry, our technology hasn't advanced that far yet. And those riot control grenades keep doing nothing but knocking soldiers sideways. It could easily fly over to them or climb down the cliff and catch up on foot. But Netflix says it's too early for that, so it just stands on the edge, admiring the view because the movie needs to make the soldiers look cool as they keep escaping again and again from this supposedly ultra-advanced alien war machine. And the filmmakers should be held accountable for discrediting the US Army, because according to them, soldiers are still using morphine, even though, due to its significant side effects, it has been largely replaced by ketamine since around 2012.
Who's got morphine?
The morphine. The files are all broken.
Ketamine has become the gold standard for pain management. It acts faster and provides better analgesia than morphine. And on top of that, they use glass ampoules instead of impact-resistant auto-injectors, which are standard in military medical kits specifically so they don't break. Moreover, 81 immediately set Seven's bone without any anesthesia, even though in the case of an open femur fracture, the priority should be immobilization, not attempting to reset the bone. Trying to set it like that can damage the femoral artery, and Seven could die from blood loss. But the funniest part is that even when facing death, 81 decides to do a strength workout and swims across a raging river wearing body armor and pouches that are completely useless at this point. That's an extra 20 kilograms just dragging him down. He somehow figured out how to rig a rope crossing, but didn't bother thinking about how they would pass the carabiner holding the wounded man across the knots. Everyone starts yelling at the top of their lungs, which is exactly how the Orion miscarriage finds their location. Two geniuses just stand there waiting to get killed. And what a brilliant combat system this bug-eyed alien has. It needs several seconds to scan a target just to confirm it's alive before opening fire. Alien AI operates at the level of a calculator soaked in piss. Meanwhile, the soldiers don't even bother taking off their gear, which only gets heavier in the water and drags them down. And to the sound of the robot's wildly inaccurate shooting, they all fall off a 30-meter waterfall, which should kill them, because hitting water from that height in full gear is basically like hitting concrete. But Netflix said to turn off physics, so everyone survives. On top of that, 81 passes out from hypoxia, then somehow revives himself from the inside and regains consciousness on the surface. His arm doesn't even cramp, and he manages to hold onto the stretcher with the wounded man underwater while being unconscious. And all because, since 81 couldn't save his brother, it's now a matter of principle for him to save Seven and carry him to the base. So physiology just goes out the window. Even while unconscious, his muscles don't relax like they should. Instead, he somehow keeps a tight grip and holds onto an 80-kilogram man in a raging current. The soldiers reach the location where the exercise coordination center used to be. It's completely destroyed, yet one of the soldiers makes a brilliant deduction.
Tell me they fucking left us! Fuck!
Only 81 shows any intelligence and quickly spells it out for the rookies. The base was wiped out by that same cosmic anal plug when it came in for landing, apparently following some intergalactic standard where braking isn't even a concept.
So it was on roughly a 20-degree angle, then hit this ridge before embedding down in the riverbank where we demoed it.
And then, bingo, there's a whole APC with a working machine gun and live ammunition. For some reason, the military brought real ammo to a training exercise. Why? The guys each lift about 3 tons and casually flip the APC back onto its wheels. Apparently, they train in the same gym as sailors who carry 1.5-ton shells without worrying about spinal injuries. And when they actually need to run like their asses are on fire, everyone just strolls around casually, like they're on leave taking a walk in the park. Well, that's exactly where it got them. And when they need to get out of there as fast as possible, one genius decides to waste time running for more ammo, because he's too brainless to realize that if explosives didn't even scratch that Andromeda freak, then bullets will be even more useless. But hey, at least he delivered the ammo in style. But now the hero will be remembered with nothing but curses, because if he hadn't run off for ammo, they would have driven away without any problem. That Pizdetron Pro Max moves at roughly the same speed as the APC, so they could have easily escaped, but instead he brought back magic ammo. Just 2 boxes, yet they keep firing as if someone enabled infinite_ammo. Damn, this guy clearly never played video games. He just shoots straight at the body when any gamer knows you're supposed to aim at the highlighted weak spots. And honestly, anyone could figure out it's better to aim at the glowing red parts, which obviously look like targeting systems. And I have no idea how these aliens were planning to conquer Earth if their weapons can't even penetrate the armor of an M1117 Guardian, which is only designed to withstand 12mm armor-piercing rounds. The alien only managed to kill the gunner because it accidentally hit the glass. But by the end of the movie, we're supposed to believe that Earth's armies are somehow losing massively to these inaccurate machines, and that only Soldier 81 will bring back the intel that turns the tide of the war, but more on that later. Plus, the soldiers are lucky the driver is basically Dominic Toretto's daughter. She can expertly drive in reverse and pull off turns in half a second, so the Star Wanker can't catch up with them. They also activate another cheat, an infinite APC health. Even the wheels don't blow out from explosions, and it feels like the same engineers who designed the weapons for those bearded aliens in that naval battle also worked on these ones. They fire unguided projectiles along a flat trajectory with effectiveness close to 0. After wasting tons of ammo, the cross-eyed 3000 only manages to accidentally spin the APC into the forest, where the Ranger's vehicle seems to have been blessed by Luke Skywalker himself. It cuts through trees like a laser. And when the soldiers were moving on foot, that bucket of diarrhea just stood still. But the moment they switched to a fast vehicle, the robot suddenly became quick, like it got nitrous installed and even started setting up ambushes. And when even a heavy machine gun can't take down this Milky Way mess, 81 goes, must have, take a carbine, and his unlucky buddy instantly loses the ability to even pull up his pants properly. Meanwhile, 81 grabs a grenade launcher because a commander can't afford to look like an idiot. At this point, the only sensible move would be to turn into the forest, jump out of the APC, and hide. But when that neural-legged freak still won't fall behind, 81 somehow triggers a whole rock slide with a single underbarrel grenade. It looks like victory, but Toretto's daughter has run out of luck, and 81 survives only because the APC practically lands him onto a relatively soft rocky plane right before the crash. Honestly, 81 must be pumping pure Titan-grade steroids. He gets thrown 10 meters out of the vehicle and acts like he just got a minor blister. And when everyone else is dead and he should be leaving, 81 instead goes to clear the rock slide, apparently just to take a leak on the defeated alien. Despite being wounded and exhausted, he somehow easily moves massive boulders. But the Space Freak only lost its right cannon from the rockfall and is now calmly installing a new firmware update, so explosives don't damage it. A crash landing from space doesn't damage it either, but a pile of rocks suddenly deals critical damage. And here, 81 suddenly gains optical zoom for several kilometers. He spots an air intake on the robot and runs to a quarry that's kilometers away. Looks like they cut a scene from the movie where he gets turned into a Terminator. He never gets tired, is immune to injuries, and can see for kilometers. And 81 just decides that if the aliens sent an indestructible machine, they definitely didn't bother protecting its air intake, and that all he needs to do is clog it with something, and this alien high-tech will overheat like an old laptop. And to test this theory, everything conveniently falls into place. The quarry has no security, all the doors are open, even the explosives are freely accessible, even though they should obviously be locked up. Random button presses activate exactly what he needs. The conveyor belt has an endless supply of rocks. The ventilation freak reacts to a flare gun and conveniently positions itself right on top of the explosives instead of, say, 10 meters to the side. And if there hadn't been any rocks on the conveyor, what exactly would 81 have done then? And so begins the first ever interplanetary sumo match, where a leaky exhaust pipe gets completely destroyed. Turns out the weapons of a highly advanced civilization are nothing compared to an excavator. The robot only briefly figures out to turn on its rocket engines for a few seconds, and it completely forgets about mines, because Netflix clearly rigged the outcome, deciding that 81 must survive, and the robot has to get completely wrecked. And not even a minute after the air intake gets blocked, this whole mechanical piece of shit heats up like a frying pan. You'd have to be not an engineer, but a complete dumbass to design a cooling system like that. One that severely limits the robot's capabilities. They put it in the most exposed spot possible, even though it would have made way more sense to place the ventilation somewhere like under the arms, so you couldn't just clog it up with debris like that. And those useless grenades, which spent the entire movie doing nothing but kicking up dust, suddenly detonate like a full-on TNT warehouse. Victory gives him a boost, and 81, who's already been on his feet for 2 days with a wounded man on his back, keeps pushing toward the military base until morning without any sign of fatigue. And this freak still hasn't taken off his body armor. Not from himself, not from Seven either, because apparently he's not tired enough and needs to carry an extra 30 kilograms for good measure. 81 gets respect from the higher-ups for destroying that two-legged metal sack of shit with a window, and then finds out he won't be getting any sleep anytime soon.
But just as the world's militaries managed to contain the threat, interstellar imaging confirms our worst fear. Tens of thousands more.
And this rest-hating freak goes straight into another mission without even taking a break. The movie is clearly called War Machine, not because of that glitchy alien tin can. And thanks to 81's signature method of destroying that cosmic fart machine, the battalion commander comes up with a winning strategy for the war against those alien thugs.
Your mission is to clear civilians, make way for heavy ordnance.
Anyway, we're waiting for a sequel and an awesome interplanetary war. The movie set a viewership record on Netflix in 2026. Wait, no way. He actually got tired and fell asleep? I can't believe my eyes.